Ambassador Sampofu now joins me on Diplomatic Communique for today's edition. I'm Ricardo Knakose. A very good morning to you, good evening to you. Thank you very much for making time out to join us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, of course, starting off, before we get into the bilateral conversation, I think it's a couple of months into the posting. How are you finding it so far?
Thank you very much for the question. I left here, I think, towards the end of May, and arrived in Austria to take up those responsibilities at the beginning of June. Luckily, I was given an opportunity to present my letters of credence to the President of Austria. That was on the 20th of June. So far, things are going well, and we look forward to the responsibility that has been tasked by the President to represent Namibia as ambassador to Austria.
Looking at Austria, let's reflect a little bit on the historical bilateral ties, when exactly our diplomatic relations started, and what makes up that historical relationship between the two countries.
Thank you. Namibia, Austria established diplomatic relations in 1990, that is at our independence. And following that, there are a number of other issues or number of other aspects that we need to consider, in the sense that by then, before even Namibia's independence, the Secretary General of the United Nations then was somebody known as Dr. Kurt Weimer, was an Australian. He did a tremendous job in terms of contributing to Namibia's independence at the UN during that time. Following that also, there are a number of other organizations that are not related to government of Austria that also did a job. This institution is called the Austria-Namibia Association. And these people, they brought about awareness about the liberation struggle of Namibia, the sufferings, and our quest for self-determination. This organization also still exists in Australia. I've met them on arrival in Austria, and during this time, we've also discussed a number of other issues that the organization or the association is doing in terms of helping. They raise funds to help destitute people in Namibia. It's a very important, it's an added pillar to the work that we do in Austria.
That's yes. Sort of the social aspect of some of the work you're doing there.
Yes.
What are some of the areas of cooperation between Austria and Namibia?
Maybe before that, to add also that Austria, during the implementation of the Resolution 435, had contributed a contingent to UNTAG, that was United Nations Transitional Assistance Group,
yes.
A police contingent that was in Namibia also to assist with the process of the implementation of 435 that led to Namibia's independence.
To the independence, and I think that Resolution 435, of course, sort of the cornerstone resolution that allowed us to gain our independence.
That's right, yes.
Reflections on different areas of cooperation. Where is it that we're working together as the two countries?
At the moment, I would say in higher education, because we have our higher education institutions, that's NAST and UNAM. They have signed a memorandum of understanding with various universities in Austria in terms of student exchange programs that has been happening for a while now. Tourism is one area also that is very important for us. Although there was a little bit sluggish during the COVID pandemic, but we've seen in the past few years, in the past 1 year, I think the numbers are really increasing, and our efforts in that regard is to make sure that these numbers grow to levels that will be acceptable to us in that regard. Besides that also, Austria has spent a lot of money in terms of research and development. Research and development. So what we're trying to do also is to tap from that experience in terms of student exchange, in terms of vocational training also, which a country that has made a lot of effort in terms of training their people vocationally. As you know, vocational training is a priority for Namibia. So we're cooperating in that regard to ensure that we tap from that experience for our people, especially when we try to address the issues of youth unemployment in Namibia.
And that's what I wanted to touch on. Of course, we know that they are also a country that's highly skilled at a technical level, innovation, etc., etc. Has that cooperation, is it at a university level, or is it still a matter of us being able to access, I don't know, is it scholarships? What are some of the opportunities within that space of TVET?
Within the cooperation that I talked about between universities, it was also, it involved exchange of students. There were 2 students that were availed by the 2 universities to go and study in Austria. and they just completed their master's degrees. So that type of cooperation, I think, is very important for Namibia.
That's quite an important one there as well. Before we get to it, I think in terms of the bilateral responsibilities, I think it's quite clear. But the biggest responsibilities that you're sitting with in Austria are also responsibilities of multilateralism, the multilateral organizations, about 4 of those which you represent. Which are these organizations that you also represent?
Thank you so much. The mission in Austria is twofold, yes, bilaterally and multilateral. Bilaterally, I'm accredited to Austria as a country, that's the host country, and I'm accredited also to a number of other countries in the region, about 11 of them. That's one part. And the second part is the multilateral tip of it. And I'm also ambassador, Namibia's ambassador, permanent representative to 4 major organizations there in Austria. These are UNIDO, the International Atomic Agency, and this one of those issues that, and one of them is UNODC and CTBTO.
Those are, I think, quite serious portfolios. When we come back after the break, we get into detail, starting, of course, with the International Atomic Energy Agency, particularly looking at our ambitions with regards to energy and that big question around whether we need to be producing energy from uranium. When we come back after the break, we continue speaking to Ambassador Vasco Sampofu, our ambassador to Austria. This is Diplomatic Communique. Welcome back to the program that concerns itself with the foreign mission services and their business in other countries where we are represented. It's Diplomatic Communique. Tonight, we're focusing on Austria, and we are joined by the ambassador to Austria, Vasco Sampofu, that just took up the post a little bit earlier on in the year. Besides the bilateral representation of over 11 countries, there are very, very, very important multilateral organizations that you represent, 4 of those. And I wanted us to really just go one by one and look at the work, because each one of them does such important work. UNIDO, industrial development, we know the kind of support we have historically received from them, but more so the International Atomic Energy Agency. It's a very, very, very big organization, but that represents, of course, some of the massive ambitions that we have as a country. Let's start with the Atomic Agency. What is our bilateral relations? When did we join, and what's our relationship like with the agency?
We have a very, very good relationship with the IAEA, so I can say, and we've worked closely with them for the number of years since we've been in Vienna, I would say since 1990. So that relationship has been strengthened by many visits, our ministers who attend meetings in that nature. As you are aware, the Atomic Agency is the world center for international cooperation when it comes to in the nuclear field. So our work is to ensure that, as Namibia, the nuclear technologies, nuclear science and all these other aspects are taken care of. The agency looks in terms of promoting and secure peaceful uses of nuclear technologies. Yes.
In terms of that peaceful use of nuclear technology, the big question, of course, we know that we are also a uranium-rich country. I know that South Africa has also been struggling with that question around whether you should go ahead and invest in nuclear power. World is sort of divided on that. We know that there are some that already benefited from it. The developing world, the global south, are saying, yeah, we need to also get an opportunity for us to be able to tap into these natural resources and sort of secure energy for our development. What is I don't want to say the feeling at the IAEA, but talk to us a little bit about these ambitions that we have, and of course certain quarters of society that are saying that we need to take that leap of faith and invest in uranium and atomic energy.
Thank you very much. As you know, we are number 3 in terms of uranium production in the world, behind Canada and Kazakhstan. So what we are doing, especially, I should also inform you that as permanent representative also to IAEA, I was also appointed as governor in the board of governors of the IAEA. So our sole responsibility is to ensure that, uranium is used for peaceful purposes in all aspects. Namibia, for example, we have the resources in terms of uranium. We produce about 6,500 tons of yellow cake in Namibia every year. Of that, probably 2,500 roasting, and Husab, probably 3,000 tons of that uranium. So your question relating to Namibia
Pursuing nuclear power ambitions.
Pursuing nuclear power ambitions. Of course, the resource is there, but it's very important to note that the other energy mix, especially in our policy that government has embarked upon, nuclear power is one of those. Although now the transition is mainly on green hydrogen, but we still have that option because in our energy policy we say at a point in time also nuclear power could be also pursued as a source of energy for Namibia.
So all options are on the table, and we could look at pursuing nuclear energy for peaceful means, of course.
Yes, it's in our
in the future.
energy mix policy, so there's that possibility that we could do that in the future. Yes.
You brought up green hydrogen, of course, quite the buzz right now, big conversation. We're looking at multi-billion-dollar investments, potentially over 15,000 jobs in the next 3 to 5 years for Namibians. Has that conversation reached the agency, and how is our ambitions for becoming a green hydrogen energy hub being received at that end?
What we could do from our side in Vienna, we have spoken now to UNIDO. UNIDO also, in terms of technical cooperation, they do provide assistance in all various aspects, and green hydrogen is one of them that we can look at. We have spoken to them in terms of, as we are transiting now to green hydrogen. They have a component in UNIDO that could assist us in terms of training, expertise, and all these other things in that regard. You are well aware also that Namibia signed a memorandum of understanding with the EU in that regard, in terms of green hydrogen. So it's in that umbrella. Austria is also a member of the EU. So we're also talking to government in terms of how can we get assistance in terms of training our people as we transition.
Has there been any private sector interest? I know, for example, from Germany and a number of others, the private companies have already started on board. The likes of in the UK, the CMB partnering up with Oldhaven List here locally. German companies, of course, also doing feasibilities, etc. here. From the side of Vienna, has there been any such interest from private business?
No, not yet so, but our efforts are really focused in terms of talking to private sector, in terms of how they can assist us in this regard.
Well, just moving on from the agency, I think quite an important one, of course, is also the UN Dr. One that deals with drugs and other problems. What is our relationship currently with that?
Go to that also. Let me also mention that it's very important to let the public know that Namibia has benefited a lot in terms of technical cooperation with the agency, IAA, and these are in the areas of cancer treatment. This is mainly for peaceful users in the areas of water management, marine resource management, and on top of that, the executive director of the agency has also come up with initiatives in terms of bringing member states in benefiting some of the things. One of those is Rays of Hope. It's called Rays of Hope. These are cancer treatment programs, and Namibia is into that also. We have benefited a lot in that regard.
I think this is a very, very important point that you're bringing in, because for the most part, when we think of the agency, we only think energy. And I would have never thought cancer treatment, for example.
That's what we do as governor in the agency. We advocate for peaceful uses of nuclear energy. And that's the responsibility that we make sure that we put across.
100%. Yes. Moving on to the other UN agencies, particularly dealing with the issue around drugs, we know, of course, that trafficking has been a big issue globally. But although as Namibia, we don't really suffer from it that much, it could still be used because of our ports of entry, etc., as a transit route for these illicit substances as well. Reflect on the importance of us and our membership of being part of that organization, and what are some of our obligations for being part of that one?
As you rightly said, it's very important to note that issues that are related to illicit drugs and international crime is not something that Namibia as a country can do on its own. You need international partners in terms of to cap that. So with UNODC, the mandate is to ensure that we fight, to help member states to fight illicit drugs and international crime. And we have benefited from technical cooperation between us and the UNODC. To give you examples that in which areas that we have benefited, I will tell you that on gender-based violence, the UNODC has assisted us so much in terms of providing training to our people, especially this cooperation between them and our national police in terms of providing training, how they deal with victims of gender violence. Besides that also, We also cooperate with UNDC, with our correctional service here. We have programs that are running in terms of, in Windu Correctional Facility, you have a soap making factory that has produced tremendous results for the inmates that are working on this program. In Khobabi's facility, we have what we call the hydroponics program with them. This is the producing of planting of
Beautiful. I've actually witnessed, I've visited that site as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So that's a program also that we're doing that. They've also helped us in terms of formulating policies, especially with regard to health issues into our prisons and all these other things. Container program also with the Port of Walsby. You know, these are targets for criminals in terms of transporting drugs and all this stuff. We have a program with UNDC that are helping us to make sure that our containers that arrive in the country are safe from drugs.
And you know, when you're raising this out, what I'm really picking up from the approach of the work that is being done, and you also mentioned, of course, with the agency, is more a rehabilitative approach and improving rather than punishing. In as far as that is concerned, when you're talking about the hydroponics programs, etc., all these projects that are running, sort of changing our outlook in as far as how we deal with drug abuse, etc., etc. Reflect on that a little bit. Is that now overall philosophy in terms of how we're dealing with this?
This we do also in our prisons in Namibia too. It's very important that we focus on programs that help inmates. So when they come out of prison, they're better citizens in terms of focusing on the things that they want to do for themselves. They learn skills in prison. You train them, and at the end of that process of sentence, or to finish serving their sentence, they could come up and establish themselves in terms of making a good living for themselves. That's exactly what is happening in this regard.
Rehabilitation and sending them back into society. That's a really, really good approach to take there as well. We are speaking tonight on Diplomatic Communique with Ambassador Vasco Sampofu, representing Austria, and of course a number of international multilateral organizations. When we come back after this break, we will be focusing a little bit more on UNIDO and the last multilateral organization that he represents as a country that has ambition for industrialization in 2030. You don't want to miss this. Stay with us. Welcome back to Diplomatic Communique, and tonight we are of course joined by the Ambassador of Austria, or Ambassador to Austria from Namibia, Vasco Sampofu, who of course took up the post earlier in the year, but already sounds like a veteran of the subject matters and some of the issues that you're dealing with. Ambassador, once again, just thank you so much for having this conversation with us as well. If we're looking at, just quickly moving on to UNIDO, of course, the Industrial Development Organization, one of the biggest agencies of the UN. We are a country that has always had ambitions of industrial development, and they've been very, very good partners for us. Just a brief reflection of our historical ties with that particular UN agency.
Thank you so much. UNIDO is very important to Namibia, I can say, because we have had, as you rightly said also, that we have historical relations with them. The mandate of UNIDO is to ensure or to help with the industrialization of member states. In this regard, with the aim of eradicating poverty and also focusing, especially in the past few years, on environmental sustainability. Namibia has benefited a lot in terms of technical programs with the UNIDO. There's a program that is running now, which is on bush encroachment. It's a program that is also funded by the government of Finland. It helps us a lot in terms of attaining the needs that we need to yes. When I presented my credentials, I should say, to the Director General of UNIDO, one of the issues that we discussed was, like, he was encouraging me that we should look as a country in terms of signing a country program framework, because in that country program framework, you look at issues, or you set a number of issues that you need to cooperate with UNIDO. That's very helpful.
So we don't have one at the moment?
We don't have one at the moment, yes. These other programs that are running, they are all individual basis, because they offer technical assistance to Namibia to do a number of things that are related to industrialization and so on, yes.
In terms of that country program, what are you looking at perhaps including? Is that something that you were going to pursue during your tenure, having this agreement?
Yes, definitely. Earlier on, I alluded to the fact that UNIDO has a component within the organization that could help us in terms of green hydrogen, in terms of training, skills development. I'm sure we could focus on that during my term of office to see what results we can achieve in that regard. I think it's very important for us to do that.
Quite a big one, and I think when you mentioned it was the issue around the biomass industry, and we see over the last couple of years, I think since 2016, there's really been concerted efforts in sort of growing this biomass value chain for us as well. Looking at the context within UNIDO, what kind of support could be potentially available for that particular sector?
It's mainly technical cooperation. Yes, because UNIDO provides, it could be done in a way of a country proposing to say, look, this is what we want to do. And if we have assistance in terms of expertise and finances, they could be able to do that for us. Yes. In
terms of the support, I think from UNIDO, we've seen there are certain aspects of industrialization, like manufacturing, for example, where we're saying that, look, we want to focus a bit on manufacturing, but the costs that are involved in terms of setting these up, etc. Is that also an organization that can provide, country-level technical support in terms of building and setting up this industry that we've been talking about for a bit?
Yes, of course, it could be done, because that's the focus of UNIDO. To promote industrialization in member states. So with a clear-cut proposal in terms of how we want to be supported, it could be done. Yes. Let's
just look at the last multilateral organization that you also represent and our ties with that institution.
That is CTBTO. This is a special agency.
If you can just, for the layman on the street, what is CTBTO?
It's Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization. What this organization does is to popularize, or to how can I say, the CTBTO's main mandate is to popularize or to promote the universality of the treaty, of the treaty. And the treaty bans nuclear explosions in the world. As Namibia, we believe in a nuclear-free world. So our efforts really are focused in terms of calling all other member states. What is this is a treaty that's not how can I say? It's a treaty that's not working at the moment, because a number of other countries have not ratified it. And these are countries that we call Annex II countries. These countries include countries like Egypt, like Iran, like United States of America, like Israel. On the ratification by these countries, the treaty will come into force.
So without the ratification, we are dealing with the catch-22 situation. And that's why I wanted to, I think the last two questions really will focus on that as well, the multilateralism and whether it's really functioning. At the opening of the session of the Diplomatic Heads of Mission, the Deputy Prime Minister mentioned and said that, look, she has a huge concern for the unilateral position that many of the countries are taking right now, at a risk of the failure of multilateralism. And if you really look at what's happening right now globally and all the posturing, the warmongering from some of the superpowers, is it a cause for concern for us as ordinary citizens?
It is a cause for concern, as not only as a citizen, as a country. What we have witnessed in the past is that the geopolitics in the regions has really spilled into the work, especially UN agencies. If you speak to any ambassador, whether it's at the UN, in Geneva, in Vienna, they will tell you that we are finding difficulties in most cases because of these geopolitics. Some work streams, like in Vienna, have failed to achieve results or to adopt outcomes of their work because of the differences these things are bringing in. So it's a challenge for us, and that threatens, in terms of the mandate of these organizations. They are mandated to carry out a certain task. And if that task is not carried out, or there's no agreement in terms of what we're doing, so it's a little bit difficult for us. It threatens our foreign policy also, because we are not able to achieve the things that we achieve, like nuclear proliferation and all these other things. Yes.
Ambassador Sampofu, thank you so much for making time out to join us. I'm sure we can have this conversation for hours, and particularly when it comes to multilateralism, but we appreciate you making time to join us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Ambassador Vasco Sampofu, who has got a huge responsibility of course, making sure there is a nuclear-free world, having recently just joined the diplomatic mission, of course, already been appointed to one of the governing boards of one of the biggest multilateral organizations in the world, the Atomic Energy Agency. Stay with us. When we come back, we continue with more as we look at and continue to investigate our foreign missions across the world. I'm Rikata Klabosep. Until next time, bye-bye.